Right. Hey everyone, this is Nitro. So in this video, I'm going to review the remaining matches I haven't covered so far that got me into the Langrisser rank. So before I begin, as always, I'm just going to test the chat, make sure it shows up in the video. Let's see. Testing. Doesn't seem like the chat is working. Once again, give me a moment to try to fix it. I honestly don't know why I'm getting this problem over and over again now. It's really, really weird. Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, give me a moment. Okay, there we go. Suddenly your messages started showing up again. It worked for a second, yes. But there we go. Messages are now showing up, so things can get started, hopefully. So, in total, took me 42 matches to get into Langrisser rank, 28 wins, 14 losses. Could have actually been faster if I didn't make a whole bunch of mistakes. My final box ended up being this. So there is a lot of long-range target damage dealers and assassins. Assassin-wise, let's see. There is the following. I am a little bit silent. Let me see if I can adjust my microphone properties. How about now? Readjusted the microphone. Okay. So yeah, in terms too loud now. Okay. Let's see, readjustments. There. Reduce the volume a bit. Better. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, sorry for the delay, so just had to adjust things a bit. In terms of my box, we basically have two long-range mages, Lolligess and Lucretia. There is a lot of assassins mixed in. Illustrial, Kayura, Omega, Cherie, Werner, Zerda, and Sigma. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 assassins, right? Healers were 3, Florentia, Liana, and the last healer was kind of tough to choose between Iris and Rozenciel, right? They each offer their own advantages. Iris offers the ability to teleport an assassin forward to attack, while Rozenciel offers immunity to debuffs, AoE healing, all that good stuff. Ultimately, I've currently settled on Iris, in large part because I figure my assassins can basically outmaneuver and outkill the AoE attackers. We'll see if that's the case. Right. But yes, this is the current box. There is Akaya as well for mobility buffing, along with Werner, who can mobility buff, as well as Florentia, who mobility buffs. And now that I threw in Iris, she is also kind of like a mobility buffer and teleporter, right? And of course, Lolligess can teleport too. So you kind of have like 5 characters who can allow these assassins to move forward. Okay? There are only 2 tanks, Jugler and Hilda. So the tank part is probably, arguably, the weakest part of this, but it actually worked out quite well. So let's just do some reviews of these things. Battles. Yeah, normally when I bring Cherie, she'll bring Shadow Strike. Of course, the fact of the matter is I don't actually bring Cherie. She's actually more like band bait. So let's start from the very bottom, where I actually lost to Kayura. Or actually, no, sorry, there's a few more battles below that. A lot of battles to review, actually. Let's start with this Jug battle. Jugler! So, one of the weird things about this box is I actually first pick a tank. Okay, and I might even second pick a tank as well, as a side note. It's because the assassins, in order to use them, you need tanks to guard them. The flip side of it, though, is because I have so many assassins, I don't actually really care which assassin I end up with, as long as I have a few. So it actually kind of works out. Now, for this battle, which my opponent, I don't even know what this box is meant to do. There are some AoE attackers in there, like Reen, Bozel, and Listel. There are a whole bunch of single target strikers, Rozenciel. You know, Hein is a teleporter and I guess AoE character. Not sure what the goal is. But there are some assassins, you know, Kayura and Mario. Elwin is single target, but yeah, it's kind of a weird mix. Not even close. My Lucretia's 4-star. So I don't even really understand that box. I just first banned Lolijess, and I get my Hilda banned right away. So he starts off with Helena of all things. I'm just like, okay, weird. Interesting, but weird. So yeah, I'll get rid of Kayura and Ares, right? Get rid of the long movement assassin and get rid of Ares who can AoE damage me, right? And I play my Jugler, right? If I lose one tank, I'll play the other tank. So, Illustrial Florentia ban now, which also makes no sense as a side note. My Hilda has already been banned, so I don't really have a faction buff for Florentia at this point. But yeah, so I mean, Illustrial kind of makes sense. This is the ideal map for Illustrial. It's like her best map, so that ban made sense. But Florentia, not too sure about. Oh, as a side note, I was still experimenting with my box at this point, and I threw in Imelda here, right? Because I was like, okay, Imelda offers mobility buffs and so on, so I threw her in. So, ShounenEddie plays SP Elwin next. Alright, I'll get rid of his Jugler and Rozenciel, and play my Rozenciel. So I lose Omega and Sigma. They play Mario. So all Legion of Glory so far. Okay, so I'll get rid of Hein and Liana, a teleport forward and an act again, right? And I play my Zerda at this point. So Zerda can faction buff up my Jugler. Now, Cherie and Lucretia are now banned. And he plays Listel, which is truly weird when I've already played Rozenciel. Right? It kind of renders Listel useless. Regardless, okay. I'll ban his Bozel and Reen, leave him the choice of Landius and Rozenciel. I'll play my Lolijess. Sorry. He banned my Kayura and Liana at this point, playing Landius, and I have a choice between Akaya and Imelda. So I go for Akaya, right? Of the two that are left, Akaya is the better mobility buffer. So went for Akaya. So, to counter and tank the hit from Elwin, I decided to bring the Stone Colossi, right? I'm expecting Elwin to hit really, really hard, so I brought Stone Colossi as my soldiers on Jugler. It reduces its mobility, but I have Akaya for mobility buffing anyways, and if I really needed to, I can teleport with Lolijess. Now, Lolijess is actually bringing her Strengthen skill as well as teleport, so she's acting more as a buffer than anything else. Even though I have Akaya, I decided to make Lolijess more buff oriented anyways. Okay. And I brought Beastal Outbreak to provide an act again. Okay. Because yes, Akaya can attack, but she can also do an act again. So, and I felt act again in this situation was far superior as the option. So that's the basic skill adjustments and choices. This one I didn't expect, but he had his Landius bring infantry, soldiers. So that does kind of counter my Jugler Stone Colossi. Okay. So actually, his Landius is a pretty good counter against my Jugler. Right? Infantry against Stone Colossi, Lancer class against Cavalry class Jugler. So, initially, as always, hanging back. Play it safe. I am outmaneuvered in terms of mobility. Makes no sense for me to kind of rush in. So I'm just kind of buffing up my party. And I don't even use, I don't even have Akaya trigger her skill yet. So, because I'm holding back, there was no reason for me to trigger Blood of the Sheikah at that point. So I just maneuver, have her just end her turn naturally, and it does cause the Wolf Soul to summon anyways. And finally, Lolly Jess will strengthen herself. Get to act again, and just ends her turn. I'm just being patient here, because I can choose to take advantage of the act again with Akaya whenever I want. So because I'm playing patient, he has to kind of rush in. And in comes Elwin with the Sword Soul, which does nothing, right? The Lancer soldiers just completely stop Elwin. Completely. You know, it's like they took a tiny bit of damage and that was it. Nothing at all went through the Stone Colossi. So the big weakness of Elwin is he actually really struggles to go through any kind of Lancers. And then if Rozenciel is in play, there is no debuffs from the Sword Soul either. So we're good. And I can just have Light of Genesis strike Elwin, taking down his first life, and providing a bunch of healing to the whole group. Now, the little annoying thing there was that Light of Genesis, Gift of Eternal Life, chose to try to heal Zerda instead of healing the Stone Colossi to full health. So there was the AoE heal from the Light's Embrace, but then the healing went into Zerda, who can't heal up the soldiers. So a little bit of waste there. Helena comes charging in next. AoE damage is healed up, and Zerda gets killed. Okay. So I actually missed this move, right? Because of Sword Soul removing the Triton buff from Jugler, Zerda was no longer guarded. And so, as a result, Helena could easily just attack and kill off my Zerda. Oops. So, careless mistake. Lost me to Zerda. You know, if I had placed Zerda, let's say here, it would have been, well, actually, regardless of where Zerda was placed, unless Zerda was next to Jugler, she was dead. So, big mistake there. Okay. But, very well. I'm down one character. No, his SP Elwin is going to die though. But before that, Enduring Faith heals him up a bit. So I'll start with a jump from Zerda. So Helena gets to heal up from that due to her armor. But most importantly, Mariel being put into water can no longer really move. So there's no way she can get into range to attack me anymore. Right? So what we have right now is Helena, on the other hand, can still move through all her tiles. Despite having the Sacred Beast Hymn make enemies unable to move or guard, because this is all free movement through her terrain, she can move wherever she wants. So, locking down Helena is not that easy, actually. Nonetheless, Mariel has been rendered kind of useless, which helps a lot. So since I can't really target them, I'll sacrifice the Wolf Soul to do some damage first to Mariel, and just finish off Elwin. This one I didn't expect, which was that Mariel had the I forgot the name of this weapon, but it provides healing, dispels a debuff, provides healing, and gives her the plus 20% hero damage. So suddenly she can actually attack me again after I killed off that Elwin. Alright, so let's have the other wolf attack Mariel once again. At least most of those Highland warriors have been killed. So she has no Highland soldiers now. So when she attacks, she was actually able to one-shot my Akaya. Another another thing I didn't expect. So that one though, let me just go back a step there, was because I had Steel Main Werewolves on Akaya. Right? In other words, what it meant was Mariel, 10 hits were capable of killing off the Steel Main Werewolves, and then 10 hits were capable of finish off Akaya. Right? So Mariel was able to attack and finish off my Akaya. It is now a 3v3, where I have Jugler, Rozenciel, and Life Genesis against Landius, Listel, and Helena. Need to heal up a bunch. Okay, we'll do that. Crystal Ward. Helena retreats, basically as expected. And Lollygess will teleport Jugler forward. And then choose to strike Landius. My opponent has no healing after all. And then I'll continue to disable the guard of Landius by B-shocking him. So, ShounenEddie has no healers. I can continue to lock down and prevent him from doing much. And that's what I've been doing. So Listel has been completely useless in this fight. Right? She hasn't done anything at all except for moving around back and forth. And Light of Genesis just quickly finishes off that Landius, turning into a 3v2 where I also have the extra Wolf Soul. Wolf Soul is giving me some options, like maneuvering. So, properly placed Rozenciel allowed my Rozenciel to be able to move when the Crystal Ward has worn off. So she doesn't poison herself to death or anything like that. So first things first, shift Life Genesis back, have her strengthen herself, trigger the act again, and also get some healing from Rozenciel's talent. And then she goes forth and strikes Listel. And then heals up some more. Chivalry from Helena. AoE damage. AoE damage gets healed. And ShounenEddie just gives up at this point. Right? There's really nothing he can do in that kind of situation. Helena cannot kill my Jugler. So, and my characters are all at full health and guarded by Jugler. So, nothing he could do. He just surrenders. The pick of Listel really didn't make sense there. Right? As long as Rozenciel is in play, Listel just is useless. She really is. So that's one of the reasons why I keep debating over whether to use, whether I should bring Iris or whether I should bring Rozenciel. There are just times where Rozenciel is better than Iris. So that was that first battle. Next is, in general, AoE teams really struggle against my box. Right? And it kind of makes sense. I mean, assassins are just bad news for an AoE team in general. So here, this is a high mobility AoE team, clearly, right? With Akaya and Estelle to provide the mobility buffs. And then there's just a whole bunch of AoE characters. Himiko, Clotaire, Lord of Crimsonia, Rainforce even. Like, all of these are AoE attackers. So this box does make sense. On my side, I've stuck with Imelda still for now. And the pick ban was, I want to reduce as much mobility as he can have. So I start by banning Akaya. Okay. Standard ban for any AoE box when I had Rozenciel was Rozenciel first. And then he starts with Estelle to mobility buff. So I will ban Ares and Clotaire, the two most annoying AoE attackers in my opinion, and I'll play my Jugler. So I lose Illustrial and Akaya. He plays Night of Mysteries. Alright. I'll get rid of Jugler and Kruger and play my Liana next. because my other healers, I do have the choice of Florentia, but I chose Liana here. Right. So SP Cherie, Light of Genesis ban, Lord of Crimsonia for him. So for my side, I'll get rid of his Rainforce and Reen, annoying debuffs, and play Hilda. Okay. So double tank. I lose Zerda and Lucretia. Enemy plays Himiko. So let's get rid of Vincent and Werner, the last bunch of AoEs, in my opinion. Although he already has the 4 AoE attackers, and Act Again or Lucretia. I'll play Kayura. And finally, I lose Florentia and Omega. The red dress is Florentia. It's her Macho Lotto that comes out this month. And finally, he plays Lucretia. So I have a choice between Imelda and Sigma. Pretty obvious who I'll pick. Sigma, right? So what I'm seeing is everyone is leaving me with that Imelda. Even though I threw her in the box, nobody thinks Imelda is much of a threat. Right? So, in terms of faction buffing, there really isn't any, right? The characters are not buffing each other at all. But I can have Gospel be brought by Liana, and Kayura can bring a Gospel as well. So with that, I kind of have some faction buffs, and Hilda can buff herself. It's not perfect, but it works. It was actually a fairly awkward pick ban from my side. So first thing I decide to do is have Sigma choose to target the Arcane Golem. Right? Take down the Arcane Golem, that makes Lucretia very vulnerable. In the meantime though, he is aggressively moving everyone forward. And I just start with Kayura, just forcing Hibiko back. And then I'll teleport back to safety. Like right now, my box idea, or my defensive idea, is both Kayura and Jugler offer healing against AoEs. So with that, I shouldn't have to worry too much about the AoEs that he launches, despite not having any proper faction buffs. So next, after that, now that Kayura has knocked it back, I can act again my Kayura and have her strike again. Right? Before I get to do that, Rainforce jumps in, and healing is provided by Kayura. Frustratingly, Kayura got mobility debuffed. Alright. So, Rainforce, when he jumps forward like this, what it does is it does steal one buff and apply one powerful debuff to the enemy. Right? And the powerful debuff I got hit with was mobility reduction, which sucks. Oh, fine. Let's have Jugler jump in. Massive mobility reduction on the enemies. And then Kayura still has enough range to strike Himiko and take her down. Right. Oh, I have a Scepter Kayura for 4 range. So despite the mobility debuff, with 4 range, because she can move 4, to have 3 range with the skill, and then add 1 range with Scepter, I was still able to kill the Himiko. So, clutch with the Scepter there. And I just positioned her in the guard range of Jugler this way. Psychic Corruption. Annoying, frustrating, because Psychic Corruption applies both cannot be healed and cannot receive buffs. So both Jugler and Kayura can't receive any healing right now. Next then, so Juggler Strike. Beast Shock actually does nothing there, right? Because I can't receive any buffs. So you could say I actually kind of wasted that Beast Shock, but the flip side is it still does 1.5 times damage. So I wanted to ensure I get the kill here. So I chose the Beast Shock. I knew I wasn't going to get any buffs, but it was important to kill the Knight of Mysteries. So there's down she goes. Kayura gets hit by this King of the Red Moon in melee mode. It actually didn't do enough damage to kill off my Kayura, which is kind of funny. Because my Kayura is only 5 stars. I'm fine with that. At that point, he just runs away. No, you go Holy for the extra crit chance. The passive for Holy class is an extra crit chance. And the other reason to use Kayura in Holy class is you lose some survivability, but being Holy class gives you a lot of extra damage against demons. Right? So for example, if you're facing off against a Jugler with Steel Mane Werewolves, you can absolutely crush them. Right? So, there are pros and cons to the Holy Kayura. Higher crit hit rates and Holy class advantage. And of course, Tenyo's headdress. Okay. Yes. Lord of Crimsonia does magic damage. The soldiers didn't. The soldiers were Holy Pegasus. But he himself does magic damage, yes. So that was the first battle against him. I actually had a second battle against him as well. So, versus AoE, another example. So I'm not going to go over his box again. It's the same box. I did swap out my box a little, I think. I removed Imelda here, right? And threw in Werner at this point. So I realized Imelda just was not working out and swapped her out in favor of Werner. So once again, Akaya ban. This time around, he bans my Rozenciel first. Playing Estelle. I'll get rid of Jugler and Clotaire, and I'll play my Jugler. Next, I lose Werner and Akaya, the 2 mobility buffers. He plays Ares this time. Alright, I'll get rid of his Florentia and Lucretia, and I'll play my Hilda once again. So, double tank once more. Alright. So, I lose Liana and Florentia. They play Rain. Okay. So, I get rid of the 2 Rain Forces. Rain Force 1.0, Rain Force 2.0. Playing Kayura once again. Right. Still, I don't have a healer, but I still have both Jugler and Kayura against the AoEs. Lollyjess, Illustrial Band, Himiko played by him. I'll get rid of Vincent and Kruger, playing my Zerda at this point. So I do have a faction buff for Jugler. And I'll lose Omega and Cherie. This leaves me still Sigma and Lucretia, both of which are very deadly characters. For him, he has Knight of Mysteries or Varna, chooses to play Varna. On my side, I will very obviously... Oh, I actually thought I would have picked Sigma, but I chose Lucretia. Okay, interesting. So I guess the main reason for Lucretia might be Mass Attack. Yeah, Mass Attack. So 2 long-range single target strike skills and Mass Attack to buff up the other characters. That way Kayura doesn't need to bring Gospel. Okay. And actually Hilda will also buff up Lucretia this way. So he has a more aggressive AoE team this time, but I feel like I still have a really good box. Now, the first move was for Lucretia to Mass Attack, and it actually mobility buffed the Arcane Golem, which helps because I can move the Arcane Golem forward and then have Lucretia teleport forward this way. So, but first, I had Kayura attack, right? Force Himiko back, and just jump back again, just like before. Nope. I still use... I think I have a Scepter on my Lucretia. Another Scepter of Divinity for extra range. So, he makes the first move with Ares. This is actually a Noble Charge Ares, which I didn't expect. Despite being a Noble Charge Ares, it could not one-shot my Jugler. damage though, but no one-shotting. And then double AoE heal, restores a whole bunch of health onto my characters. So I expected an AoE attack Ares, but I think he realized with both Jugler and Kayura, the AoEs won't do much. So he chose to bring Noble Charge, tried to Noble Charge down my Jugler, Steel Mane Werewolves just completely shrugged it off, and kept Jugler alive. Did I trigger the armor? I think I might have. Yes, I triggered the armor too. So with the armor triggered, I had 4,000 hit points remaining. I think it was a combination of the armor trigger that kept him alive, now that I look at that. But he lives, which will make a big difference. First, let's have the Jugler just do a suicide jump now to AoE damage the whole enemy team and debuff them. Main reason as well is, once again, turn them onto water tiles. Now they can't move forward properly, right? Neither Himiko or Rin can really shift forward all that much. And Zerda has no opportunity to really buff. Instead, she's going to attack and kill off Ares due to the Lucretia mass attack, right? So no faction buff, just AoE damage and then kill off Ares quickly. So far so good. Himiko now tosses out another AoE. It actually takes off the first life of... I think it actually took off the first life of my Himiko, or sorry, of my Lucretia, because she is just 4 stars, right? Just doesn't have that much health yet at 4 stars. So she lost her first life after having been damaged by the Ares AoE, but revives due to the Arcane Golem. Alright, so that means Lucretia can counterattack with her 3C, kill off the Himiko, and just heal up a bunch. And we can just shift her position back a little, and Magic Pulse. Werner! 1,000 arrows! Health restoration! Everyone lives! 4% hit points! But Lucretia lives. The Arcane Golem stats are based on Lucretia stats. Right? 10957 hit points, 10957 hit points. Right? The other stats are just Lucretia stats without the plus 20% attack. So however tough your Lucretia is however tough the Arcane Golem is. That's basically it. Well, Werner's AoE was not sufficient to kill off anyone. And that means I can have Kayura launch out another attack. And remember Kayura, every time she attacks, as long as she's within range of allies, she will heal them. So there we go. After that Star Sword, right? She provides 1.5 times the caster's int in healing to these other characters. So. And then for some fun, this Estelle, who side note has no real attack, right? Estelle tries to attack and kill off this Jugler, Steel Mane Werewolves with the plus 40% defense, just totally laughs it off. Like, nothing ever reaches Jugler. The Steel Mane Werewolves just absorb everything very easily. Estelle does nothing. And then Jugler actually provides healing to these characters. So, he's lost 3 characters. I haven't lost anyone. He retreats. It's just really bad news to face off against my box for AoE teams. So those were the 2 AoE example battles. I guess I'll show this recent one as well against Qtaru. So this battle, I no longer have Rozenciel in the box. As I said, I've been experimenting with that last slot to see. I swapped in Iris instead. So my first bet, he runs Mew in the box, his box, to teleport characters forward and so on. And my decision to ban a character was I was like, I have no clue who I'm gonna ban. So why don't I just get rid of Lucretia? Right? You can't go wrong with banning Lucretia. And then on my side, my Jugler is banned. Right? This never happens when I had Rozenciel. But now that Rozenciel's not in the box, he's gonna ban my Jugler. Fine. And he plays Jugler right away. So I'll get rid of his Illustrial and Bernhard, right? Empire faction buff and Assassin, which does quite well on this map. And I'll actually play Hilda to start, because that's my only tank that's left. So, Kayura and Liana, ban. Now I don't have an AoE healer anymore. And Qtaru starts with Clotaire. Alrighty, I'll get rid of Ares and Rozenciel, Empire faction buff, as well as Ares with that deadly AoE. And I play Florentia. So, Iris SP Cherie ban. And he plays Estelle. So, mobility buffing for the AoE characters. Alright, I'll get rid of Florentia and Autokratos. Act again. And very long range AoE. Playing my Lolijess. Illustrial Lucretia ban. He plays Kruger. And at this point, he's left with Himiko, Mew, and the two dark faction buffers. I end up getting rid of Himiko and Licorice, right? Leaving him the choice of Mew and Bozel. I play Zerida, and I was actually expecting him to play Bozel. He instead chose to first ban my Sigma and Omega after I played Zerida, and play Mew. Okay, interesting. So my final pick is between Werner and Akaya. Right? I'm just looking at this. Werner would benefit from the faction buff from Hilda, but ultimately I didn't think I would have enough time to really make Werner be able to fully charge in and attack. So I decided to pick up Akaya as the last character instead. Right. Werner has some setup time. He needs to trigger his 3C multiple times to get stat boosts before he attacks. So... Oh, I played Werner in some of these battles, but this was just not the right battle for him. So, what I have here is basically Act Again or mobility buffing, teleportation forward, another mobility buff from Akaya, and she can also attack, and then Zerida as a faction buff for herself, and Hilda for the faction buff for Lolijess and Florentia. Qtaru starts with the mobility buffing of his team. I start with the faction buffing for my team. So, Kruger moves forward, does Evil Overwhelming. And I respond by having Zerida Heart of Alhazard to start. So that she's ready to attack. Okay. Qtaru teleports Kruger forward. And I'm just like, okay, it is outside of my Zerida range, but I still have Akaya here for, the mass mobility buff. So, here we go. Akaya trigger. Holy Protection. Wild Power. Everyone has +2 mobility and +30% attack. Zerida's ready to assassinate. Jugler, Sacred Beast him jump, AoE damage, shifts forward a bunch, and debuffs. Okay. So a whole bunch of debuffs on my characters now due to Kruger and so on. Damage on both Florentia and Life Genesis. I noticed that Florentia was down to like 2644. And so clearly need to heal up first. So Florentia healing, Florentia sudden strike. Zerida is ready to assassinate. And then Kruger moves forward, triggers first mobility action, triggers second mobility action, launches out her 3C, or his 3C, sorry. Hits for a whole bunch of damage on Lolijess and Hilda, but doesn't kill anyone after Florentia's heal. And I had all the other characters positioned far back enough that I avoided the attack from the last 3 characters. So I have 2 characters who can act right now and attack. And this is where I make a tiny mistake. I have Lollygess, Strike, Jugler, and she dies, although she kills off the enemy Jugler. Okay. So I was like, what happened there? It's actually because of Qtaru. Qtaru, as long as he hits 2 characters with his 3C, will have this command effect, Burning Illusion. When friendly units within a 3-block range are attacked by enemies with the Shattered Flame effect, their range is increased by 1. Meaning, Jugler had a 2-range attack here. So that's why my Light of Genesis took damage and died. So what I really should have done was not have Lollygess attack right away. I should have had Zerda probably assassinate Qtaru, then Light of Genesis attack Jugler. Since I did it in the wrong order, Lollygess, this was a suicide strike by my Lollygess. So she died, whatever. Zerda will go in and take down Kruger. And back off. So Qtaru then strikes my Zerda, killing her off due to breaking last rites. And Akaya can finish off Qtaru pretty easily with her 3C. And we're in a situation where it is 3 against 2. So very, very quickly, the battle's already done. Right? There's nothing he can really do to come back from this kind of position. There's just not enough damage output to actually kill off my Hilda. Right? Even if Hilda dies once, she'll revive. Right? So I'm not worried about facing against the Song of Destruction or anything like that. So battle's basically over. It's just gonna take a few turns to maneuver to end it. And I'm just maneuvering forward while keeping my Hilda at full health. Shift forward, make sure Hilda is guarding people. Have my Akaya attack first. And once again, the Steelman Werewolves taking no damage, right? Or absorbing everything that Estelle can output. I don't do much damage because Akaya is ultimately cavalry class, but I do wipe out almost all the Phallic soldiers. And that lets Florentia strike, almost killing Estelle, and then she can trigger Act again to finish off Estelle. So, game over. Qtaru just suicides Mew. So, even without Rozenciel, this battle kind of worked out, but it's definitely much more dangerous, right? Without having anyone who provides AoE team healing. We'll see. I might swap back Rozenciel after testing this out for a bit. But for now, I'm still trying to figure out that last character. Okay. So this was so next, I guess I'll show a few more interesting battles. Leon with Balanced Blade is really, really surprising in general. Like, I always underestimate him. So, let's play this one out. So, MukiTheWolf. A lot of AoE characters, once again, right? Even Beyond is really an AoE character. So this is more of an AoE-oriented box. And I just have Imelda still here. So, lose Rozenciel, I'll ban Lollygess, play my Hilda, lose Liana and Kayura, right? Enemy plays Bozel. I'll get rid of the dark characters, so Licorice and Kruger, playing my Omega right off, because I know Omega can assassinate Bozel. So I lose Zerda and Lustriel. Enemy plays Lucretia second. Alright, I'll get rid of Jugler and Kayura, playing my Florentia, faction buff and so on. And next I'll lose Lucretia and Lollygess. And enemy plays Hilda. So a pretty late pick Hilda that I allowed. Okay, So I'll get rid of Florentia and Liana, the Act Again healers, and play my SP Cherie. One of the rare times where I actually got to play her. It's so rare to be able to pick SP Cherie in the 4th slot. Well, Jugler and Akaya banned. Enemy plays Rozenciel now. So Empire, 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 and Dark. And I have the choice between Imelda and Sigma once again. Everyone lets me play Imelda. So Bernhard Ares banned, finally. I'll play Sigma and MukiTheWolf for the final pick between Hobo and Leon plays Leon. So what I end up with is 3 assassins, really. Right? There is Omega, there is Sigma, and there is Cherie. Right? Although my Cherie at this point didn't actually have Shadow Raid unlocked, so she ended up bringing Raging Storm and Lightning. Okay. Florentia here is bringing Mass Attack because I don't have a faction buff for these 3 characters. So Florentia will act as the faction buff with Mass Attack. And the second pick, Omega, means that none of his characters actually have skill, right? I mean, I suppose Leon kind of has skill, but Bozel has no skill, Lucretia has no skill, Rozenciel has no skill, Hilda has no skill, so nice little bonus for Omega, which I expected. So maneuvering forward, right? Triggering on the Lucretia Golem and maneuvering forward. So this is where I seem to have miscounted. Like I was like, okay, Leon can move here, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles, right? 4 tiles away, I can't get attacked, right? The problem is there is this sand dunes tile, and the mechanical knights pass through defensive terrain, right? So actually he can move here, trigger chivalry, and move 1, 2, 3 movements, and then 3rd tile to attack. So I mass attack, triggering rush on my SP Cherie so that she was ready to attack, thinking I would get to attack first next turn. And instead, Leon comes charging in, strikes and kills Cherie, moves forward, Blue Dragon Strike, everyone gets teleported like madmen, and it is a complete mess, right? So that 1 tile miscount, missing that mechanical knights can travel through the sand dunes, got me heavily damaged. And the worst thing is, the teleportation put all my characters in horrible positions. Like, Hilda cannot guard most of these characters. You know, Sigma is all the way in front. There's no way I can keep Sigma alive at this point, or anything like that. So I had to choose, who do I keep alive, Sigma or Omega? Right? I'm like, okay, I need to keep Omega alive. You know, Sigma, if I send him up, he might be able to kill the Arcane Golem, but after that, I'm screwed. So I sacrifice Sigma as well. Omega attempts to kill off Leon and fails. He survives. He tanks the hit because Omega took way too much damage from that AoE hit, the Blue Dragon Strike. All of those Dark Elf snipers were knocked down. So Lucretia naturally takes out my Sigma as well. So now we're in a position where I'm down 2 characters. 3 against 5. Alright, so let's have Florentia kill off Leon first and trigger battle support to heal up Omega to start. I don't heal up Omega himself, but all the soldiers are pretty much raised back to life. Right, we're still kind of in the fight. 3 against 4. So, what I'm looking at here is Bozel has the 3C, can move over here, target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can only hit Hilda, which I'm fine with. So, or I can just move back and avoid it entirely. But Lucretia, with her crazy range, gets to move up, toss out a black hole to hit me, right? Because of the 5 range that she has or whatever. And then Arcane Golem can teleport her back a little bit to safety. So I'm just shifting back, trying to keep my characters alive, trying to survive these AoEs. And first things first is to move Florentia back as far as she can go, heal up my Omega to full, and then mobility buff him so that he can go for an attack. Right. Day Crystal Restoration, fine, you know. Omega shifts forward, triggers Lone Shadow, right. Moves forward all the way up, kills off Bozel. As long as I could get into range to attack, Omega was gonna kill. And so because of having triggered the +2 mobility from Florentia, I could move all the way to here and target this Bozel. So the Florentia rush, keeping me in the fight. And due to having triggered Lone Shadow here, Omega can very easily stay in the guard range of Hilda. And I'm just gonna slow play it, continue to hover in the back. Right? Most importantly is to heal Florentia back to full health, right? Needed that to restore her health. So I'm looking at this. In the meantime, I'm also waiting for Lone Shadow to recharge. And so I'll rush Omega once again. So now 3v3. Omega, once again, Lone Shadow movements. We'll take out the Arcane Golem. We'll teleport back and be guarded by Hilda. So, Lucretia gets to move up, launch out a Psychic Corruption, apply cannot be healed and cannot receive buffs on my characters. Whatever. He has no real follow-up to that at this point. And I focus my healing on restoring Omega, right? The character that needs to be buffed. So with this now, Omega can once again attack at 3 range, take out Lucretia as well, and he has no attackers. Game over. So he had a very, very strong start, but Omega was able to just wipe out everything. And there's not much he can do at this point, right? There's nothing he can do to really stop, to break through my Hilda, and I always have Omega to attack with. So I can do something like AoE with Florentia, trigger Act again on Omega, have Omega hit the Rozenciel that no longer has Shrine Maiden buff, and down she goes as well. Game over. Just waiting for him to surrender. He doesn't, but it's just a matter of time for me to finish off his last character. So, Omega is actually extremely powerful as long as you can provide him with extra mobility. You know, he can just keep attacking like that. A lot of fun for me, actually. You can see I have multiple battles with Omega. Like Omega lulls here, you know. Omega lulls against Leo Smart. He's actually been a very good early pick and been dominating battles for me as a result. But first, Kayura. Yeah, there's going to be a Werner fight somewhere. I don't know where it is though. So this is a battle where I lost solely to Kayura. It was just rough. So let's take a look. So I took a look at his box. I had no idea what to really ban. I actually started it with a Hilda ban. And I lost my Akaya here. Side note, I realized that, as I said, Imelda's not working out, swap to Werner. So he starts off with Kayura right away. Alright, I'll get rid of Lolly Jess and Lucretia and play my Jugler. And I lose Liena and Florentia. And he plays Florentia on his side. So I got rid of his Hiei and Sigma and played my Lolly Jess. So I lose Zerda and Cherie. And he plays Landius. I get rid of Reen and Rainforce, playing my Kayura. And then I lose Illustrial and Sigma, and the enemy plays Licorice. Right. So I was just looking at this, I was like, and I got rid of Iris and Kruger, playing my Omega. My thought here was just, I wasn't sure what to ban, but I thought that I wanted to get rid of the AoEs that have higher mobility. So Iris could have teleported the character forward, which is really bad news. And I was like, okay, let's just get rid of Kruger, who can move forward 5 tiles to AoE. And finally, I play Omega. I lose Werner and Lucretia, and he plays Rozenciel. Okay, and Rozenciel can buff up Florentia. So I actually allowed a very, very bad combo, where Florentia keeps getting strategy points. Big mistake there, and you'll see why. And then finally, instead of playing Rozenciel, I chose to play Hilda last. Another questionable choice. I think my decision there was, that way I can have a faction buff for Light of Genesis. So he starts with the buff for Florentia, right? And I start kind of maneuvering a little bit. Mass attack, buffing up Kayura, and then rushing her. And this is something I actually did not really realize, which is what really screwed me over. Rush on Kayura does provide her with an additional 2 mobility. Okay, because the rush skill is based on your default, your mobility before any kind of effects like this. So because she's getting the 3 mobility from a passive effect from her 3C, right? She gets the 3 additional mobility from her 3C. The rush effect does provide the additional 2. It's just like how Bozel will also get +2 mobility, even if he has speed boots. Kayura is actually at 8 mobility here, with the rush. So it's 8 mobility with 4 range, which is going to be, which I'm just like, oh crap. So Kayura is in range, Omega's in range, and Jugler is in range of this Kayura. So I had to kind of pick who to keep alive. I chose to move Kayura back first. And he didn't attack with his Kayura yet, so I was able to move Omega back as well. But as soon as I saw the 8 mobility plus 4 range on Kayura, I'm just like, oh hell no. What am I gonna do here? So my attempt was to screw up Kayura by jumping my Jugler in, right? By jumping Jugler, I thought I could do some damage to Kayura, and I would be in a forest tile. Right? Most importantly, I applied a mobility debuff into water effect there. But Kayura was unable to one-shot my Jugler, but it doesn't actually resolve all that much, because actually Kayura is guarded by Landius. So this jump, followed by the Lollygest teleport forward and attack, was an attempt to kill. And the attempt to kill failed. So that was actually my fault, as a side note. If I had Hilda faction buff, Lolly Jess would have had plus 20% attack, right? And with plus 20% attack, Florentia would have died. But without the attack buff, Florentia lived. So now I am in serious trouble. So multiple misplays occurring here in these early turns. Lolly Jess continues to attempt to kill Florentia. The second attack does nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay? Because I also got a 20% attack reduction effect from the Dark Despair. So now, with even further reduced attack value on both the Sorceresses and Light of Genesis, and no attack skill, Florentia just laughed that off. And this lets Kayura attack and kill my Jugler. Yeah. Things are just getting worse and worse. The assault totally failed. You know, I am basically screwed. Because Kayura can't move anymore either, right? Now that I've lost the character, Kayura loses the free mobility buff. But I was like, I still might have a chance with this kind of situation, maybe. It'll depend on Breeze buffs, right? But there's still a possible opportunity to come back. First, Lolly Jess continues to get worked down. And then a sudden strike on Licorice will mean Lolly Jess also dies. So there we go. I've lost 2 characters to none now. And he's just hovering back, playing it safe, being patient. Yeah. And I'm just trying to move into range as much as I can. Because I need to kill things. But before that, he starts off with another Dark Despair. Debuffing, hitting for damage. Another big mistake here on my part is I had Omega take out Licorice. Okay. So I thought this would be enough to reduce the Kayura mobility, right? And that would make me safe. But what I didn't factor in was this. Okay. So Kayura moves up, and then Florentia first casts Mass Attack, then she'll cast Rush. So in other words, with the Rush, this Kayura still has the 5 mobility and then 4 range for attacking with skills. So it's still 9 range. Still outranges all my characters. Okay. So I'm attempting to deal with her. Start by having my Kayura attack and teleport back to heal up my characters. But with how I positioned, Omega could not get into range to finish off this Kayura. Okay. Because I moved my Omega back too far, I could not finish off the Kayura. And so Kayura got healed up back to full health. And at this point, she can endlessly get 5 mobility from the Florentia. And I get hits. My Kayura dies. So it's now 4 against 2. The only chance I have left would be if I trigger another mobility buff on Omega somehow. If I trigger a mobility buff on Omega, and Omega manages to one-shot this Kayura, I might be able to win. That's the only opportunity though. So I'm just maneuvering, hoping for that. I know he's gonna keep rushing this Kayura. but if I can trigger a mobility buff, I could have Omega wipe out everyone else. Right? Omega can direct attack Rozenciel and kill her. Omega can direct attack Florentia and kill her. Then I would just have Omega and Hilda against Landius, if I can kill this Kayura. So it all depends on triggering a breeze buff. If Omega gets 5 movements, right, and then activates Lone Shadow, he can move to here, then move 2 more, then strike the Kayura. But no breeze buff occurs. Let's move. Still no breeze buff occurs. Right? So there is no opportunity for a comeback. Because the Kayura continues to stay out of range. And so with the map closing in size, I have no choice but to move my Omega in. And it's just 1 tile away from the enemy Kayura. Just one tile off from striking the enemy Kayura. And thus, game over. Dead Omega, nothing I can do. But yeah, very, very bad idea to allow that Kayura plus Florentia combo. Very, very much underestimated that. So, what is next? After that, a battle against Holmes? So this was one of the legitimate losses, you know, not a loss due to me making careless mistakes, but just me losing from what I can tell. All right. So Windy Outpost, as I keep mentioning, is Illustrial's best map. Whenever it comes up, Illustrial will see a first ban. That's pretty much the way it goes. Holmes plays, you can basically say it's a single target box, right? Because they're all single target characters. Deedlit, Bernhard, you know, I guess Himiko isn't, but pretty much everyone else is. And I started with an Akaya band to reduce the mobility and played my Jugler. Looking at it now, that was probably a bad idea. In any case, I lose Rozenciel and Akaya next, and he starts off with SP Cherie. Alright? So I get rid of Lollygess and Florentia and play Zerda. So my SP Cherie and Sigma are banned, and he plays SP Elwin. So the faction buff for SP Cherie. Jugler Ares ban, playing my Lollygess. Werner and Lucretia ban, and he plays Himiko. I ban Bernhard and Kayura now, playing my Kayura. And finally I lose Liana and Florentia. Enemy plays Lucretia. I have a choice between Hilda and Omega. Right? So, but first I get rid of Deedlit and Zerda, so he has Helena and Rozenciel. And finally, for my last pick, I chose Hilda. So, double tank, Zerda for assassination, Kayura for assassination, and Lollygess for teleporting and so on. And yeah, he decides to play Helena. So all the offensive attackers versus my double tank with a good number of damage dealers and whatnot. I thought I would be completely fine with this kind of setup, but because I would have 2 tanks to protect everyone and so on. And let's see what happens. So first, Zerda maneuver forward, faction buffing. They mass attack. And I just continue to move forward a bit. And Himiko just jumps right in and launches out her free C to hit my characters. Kayura actually takes a lot of damage there. Okay. From it. And the Cherie has a Shadow Raid as a side note. So I just kind of teleport Kayura back a bit, and just end turn. And finally, just activating guarding, you know, staying in the area with everyone. So, Light of Genesis will strike and force Himiko back a bit and heal up my characters a bunch. Okay. I knew I was putting my Light of Genesis into range of Cherie, but my thought was like, she is in range anyways, right? Unless I had moved her back. So I decided to go for it instead, and what ends up happening is Shadow Raid from this Angel Cherie one-shotted Light of Genesis. So once again, so this means the Angels are not participating in this fight. It's just Cherie with her 15-20 attack with the Shadow Raid. But despite that, Light of Genesis got one-shotted. And then Cherie acts again, strikes, and will stun my Jugler. Doesn't kill him, but he is completely stunned. Now I'm actually in a lot of trouble here because of also the teleport that I did on Kayura. Kayura, I moved her so far back, she's actually no longer able to move because Lolly just died, and she can't attack this Cherie at all. So that all the planning collapsed as soon as Lolly just got one-shotted by Cherie. Very, very much underestimated how much damage Cherie alone can do without soldiers participating. And at this point, I try to have Hilda kill Cherie, fails. And then Helena comes running in. The hit is tanked, but not a good situation at all. Right? Where I'm already down a character, I haven't killed any of his characters, and I can't really move my Kayura either. So SP Elwin now comes charging in to take down Jugler, who has woken up. And a black hole is launched by Lucretia from long range. And that black hole killed off my Zerida, basically ending any chance of a comeback. Okay. So everything started, the whole collapse started from me underestimating SP Cherie. That was it. There's a reason in most battles I first ban SP Cherie. She is just seriously bad news if you allow her to attack. Next battle, Bozel against Florentia. So a key point of this battle is the way my Florentia is built, as a side note. So let's just bring that up first. So, my Florentia currently has a Sword Swift medal along with the new Nightbloom weapon. So what this means is Nightbloom can dispel, do an additional dispel, in addition to whatever dispel she does, right? So since she usually casts spells twice, she can dispel a lot, right? Her natural cast and then her strategy cast will also do more dispelling, especially when comboed with the Forest Priest. So it kind of means that she's probably dispelling, let's say, if this dispels 1, Forest Priest dispels 1, the Nightbloom dispels 1, that's 3 dispels. And then your second cast will also dispel 3 more effects. Or if you use Strategic Regroup, you're mass dispelling 3 from your whole party, and then the second cast will dispel 3 more. The Swordsmith medal is brought because it provides the immunity to silencing. Immunity to the fixed damage is mainly for facing off against, let's say, anyone whose fixed damage may kill your Florentia. So this creates a Florentia that's both very difficult to kill and cannot be silenced. You could use a Holy Ring in replacement of the Swordsmith Medal, but your Florentia is more vulnerable that way. So yeah, in any case, let's just see or demonstrate how well Florentia with this setup performs against the mass debuffing Bozel. His box is mostly yet another standard meta box, right? I mean, Helena, like this is almost pure 100% common meta characters. There's nothing unique about it. My box continues to have Werner in it. And first band of Daywalker is SP Cherie. My first banned character is Omega. Yeah, people... a lot of people don't like to face Omega. So... he plays Helena first. I'll get rid of Lollygess and Lucretia and play my Jugler. Next, yeah, so notice how I banned SP Cherie first, followed by long range strikers. So I now lost Illustrial and SP Cherie, and he plays Bozel right away. So I'll get rid of Kayura and SP Elwin, playing my Zerida. Next, I'll lose Sigma and Kayura, and replace Hilda. I'll get rid of his Bernhard and Ares, playing my Lollygess once again. So Werner, Lucretia ban, and replace Kruger. I'll get rid of Jugler and Liana last, leaving my choice between Rozenciel and Licorice. I'll play Florentia here, and then I'll lose Liana and Rozenciel. Enemy will play Rozenciel. I have a choice between Hilda and Akaya, and clearly I am going to pick Hilda, right? Because Hilda will faction buff up Lollygess and Florentia in this kind of situation. So yeah, very, very common that I end up with double tank for whatever reason. Looking at his side, there are basically 3 AoE attackers in Helena, Kruger, and Bozel, with a tank, Hilda, and Rozenciel for faction buffing and keeping the characters alive. So the goal of this is basically to allow Zerida to kill things, I believe. So initially, always starts off slow with my box because most of my characters can't attack until turn 2 or turn 3 in most situations. So I'll start with a strategic regroup to dispel a lot of the debuffs, and this was a stupid mistake on my part, right? Rush has no impact on Jugler, alright? Rush only provides mobility based on your base movement, and it subtracts from your base movement 5 minus 5, right? So for example, Zerida has a base movement of 3. So she would get 5 minus 3 for 2 additional mobility. Jugler would have 5 minus 5, which gives you 0 additional mobility. So that was kind of careless. Just wasted 2 points. But we're ready to set up Zerida to attack. So she triggers her skill, staying out of range of Helena. She is now ready to go and assassinate things. And I'll trigger the act again so that I can have 2 characters move one after another. So that kind of forces Daywalker to charge in. He really has no choice at that point, or else he's just asking for me to kill someone without him doing anything. So he started by moving Helena in just to apply the terrain effects. Right? because with those terrain effects, it means Zerda can no longer trigger her talent, Hide and Seek, at this point. Regardless of where I go, Helena can always cover the whole map. So this is the one turn I can have Helena have Hide and Seek for her attack. Fine, I'll teleport Zerda forward so that she can kill off someone. And it was kind of a... With the way he positioned, I can only choose to kill Kruger. Because if I try to take down Bozel, moving 3 tiles back would place me here. And that's not guarded by a Hilda at all. So, fine. Zerda will take down Kruger. And move back into the guard range of Hilda. I actually didn't even realize this, but I could have had Jugler jump. Oops. So I could have killed Bozel and then jumped Jugler in to guard. Oh well. So, right away, Bozel launches out his 3C, applying debuffs like mad, right? Jugler, look at all these debuffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Zerda, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hilda, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lolijess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, insane number of debuffs on all my characters right now. From Bozel and Helena Impact. And Kruger for the matter. Alright. So, Resounding Mites first. Dispel 3 from everyone. Right. Battle Support. Dispel 3 more. So the first 3 was able to remove the silence that was on Zerda. She's down to just 2 debuffs now, but she actually had a cannot receive buffs effect on her. And the others lost, Jugler's down to 4 debuffs. I think Legend still has 7 debuffs. Whatever. Most of a significant number were removed. That's the key. So I just start shifting my characters back. Because the goal is still to survive another AoE from Bozel. So he launches out a second Descent of Chaos. More debuff hell happening. This time Light of Genesis cannot be healed on her. Same with Zerda and so on. So a lot more actually almost everyone got cannot be healed applied onto them. Alright, so a lot more debuffs happening here. Alright. Yes. My goal is to remove all the debuffs before I have Zerda Heart of Alhazard. Helena attacks, but she can't do anything to Hilda, really. As long as your Hilda is bringing the skill that I brought, which is War Goddess, she doesn't do much. So here, Strategic Regroup now. Strategic Regroup will dispel 3 debuffs. So Zerda is now down to 0 debuffs, finally. And everyone else... And then I choose to Sudden Strike my Zerda so that she can trigger her attack. Or trigger changing forms. I have Lolijess attack just because she can provide some healing this way. And Zerda begins with faction buff. So Hilda tanking a hit, gets stunned. Right? The route skill from Hilda. Bozel currently has a 1-turn cooldown on Descent of Chaos. So this is enough time for Zerda to activate her form change. But first, because I clocked last turn, I was able to launch out yet another AoE to dispel debuffs again. Right? So I was trying to dispel everything on Hilda to wake her up. Right? Because she is currently stunned. So that was 3 dispels. Battle support. 3 more dispels. Hilda's woken up. And the AoE. One moment, Krios. You're saying casting Zerida's 3C removes all debuffs from your character? Does it? Oh, it does. Dispels all debuffs from you and sacrifices all soldiers. Ha! I actually didn't even know that. That is good to know for the future. So you can dispel it to remove the cannot receive buffs effect? Interesting. I truly didn't even notice that. All these little things. Good to know. Okay, so I didn't have to go get this crazy. I could have just dispelled it on Zerida and used her right away by using her 3C. In any case though, by doing what I did, let's go back to last round, I was able to wake up my Hilda so that she continues to guard everyone. And then during this one turn where I'm just gathering my characters, Jugler will jump once again. And I finally have Zerida trigger her 3C to be able to assassinate Bozel. I think. Oh no, first I had Lollygest take out Bozel. So Jugler jump, disable the Hilda guard. Then Lollygest, using Light's Embrace, doing extra damage, killed off Bozel. Especially because my Lollygest is Holy Class, right? Holy Class Lollygest against Demon Bozel. Huge damage advantage. And that was an easy kill. And actually, the funny thing is, I haven't actually lost anyone in this fight so far. I actually have all 5 of my characters, even though Daywalker's already lost 2. So he's continuing to AoE damage me and so on, continuing to strike me, continuing to fail to kill anyone, you know? And yeah, he just gives up. He was on offensive pretty much the whole time, but at the end of the day, he couldn't kill off anybody with those AoEs. Wow. That is kind of funny though. That I didn't know Zerida's 3C removes all debuffs. Oops. Could have saved me a lot of time for that fight, Krios. But yeah, hopefully I'll remember from here on out. But nonetheless, it does show Florentia's ability to dispel is much more powerful than people realize. Despite facing pretty much an all AoE debuff team, I was able to stay with barely any debuffs on my characters. Alright, what's next? Trying to find the battle where Werner came out. It's quite difficult though. Oh, here. Werner against Kayura. Let's play that one. So... Kimpochi runs another AoE team, it looks like, with a mix of single targets. And yeah, I lose Akaya first, he will lose SP Cherie first. I've pretty much switched to banning SP Cherie first, if I see her. Like, she is just too much bad news for my box. So, I started with Hilda, and of course lose my SP Cherie and Florentia right away. Enemy plays Hilda as well, so I get rid of Florentia and Lollygest, playing my Omega once again. So 0 Liana ban. Enemy plays Kayura. I'll get rid of the enemy Liana and Licorice, so both sides don't have any act against. And I play Rozenciel. So my Kayura and Sigma are banned. Enemy plays his Rozenciel. And I will ban Bozel and Lucretia playing my Werner. Finally, Lollyjess Jugler ban. Enemy plays Jugler. I have a choice between Lucretia and Illustrio as my final picks. This is not an Illustrio map, right? So I'm pretty sure I pick Lucretia. So, but first, I'll ban Bernhard and Kruger, leaving Helena and Hobo for them. And yes, I play Lucretia. Enemy probably plays... I'm guessing Hobo, actually. Oh, nope. Enemy actually played Helena. Interesting. Hobo would have been a good pick there because Hobo would have buffed up Kayura, Rozenciel, and Jugler. In any case. So, full disclosure, I am pretty terrible with Werner because I have barely used him, even though I have him in my box. And my Werner is 5 stars, so what ends up happening here is I just basically keep mispositioning my Werner. Initial movements, shifting around for both sides. So I've moved Werner up here in speed stance. My thought was to mobility buff Omega and Lucretia and so on for attacking. And then the problem with this positioning of Werner though is if I count the tiles now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remember, Werner needs 10 tiles of movement to ignore guard strike with the quick strike. So I misplaced my Werner, quite simply. If I had placed Werner 1 tile back, that would have been correct. But because I placed my Werner where he was too close and I couldn't hit Kayura. Annoying. So Werner's positioning is actually really, really annoying. So because of that, I need to kind of shift back to protect my characters. Once again, shift Werner back, mobility buffing, and this was another big mistake because Werner, being cavalry, does not move through desert. So I have barely any movement here as a result. If I wanted him to have max movement, I should have placed Werner either here or all the way down here. Okay. So another mispositioning of Werner, he can barely attack, he can't attack anything. And this freed up Kayura, of course, to charge in and take out my Lucretia Arcane Golem right away. Oh, not much I can do there. Now that I've already mispositioned, I mean, I can have Lucretia launch out an attack, right? That's about it. And Lucretia, being at the star level she is, 4, doesn't do enough to one-shot that Hilda. So, Omega, Lone Shadow, Omega, range attack on Helena, easily takes her down. So, that's because Helena has no skill. So I was able to completely ignore the soldiers. I had 3 times her skill, right? Over 450. And thus, I could just direct attack Helena and kill her off with my Omega. So Omega continues to just kill things despite never having a faction buff. Very, very underestimated hero for PvP. So my Omega gets attacked by the enemy Kayura, but the enemy Kayura actually does not have a Twilight Star. I didn't expect this, but since it doesn't, Omega survives the strike. Right? Oh no, it did! Twilight Star did kick in, but I didn't die anyways. Huh. Wow. That was interesting. I'm also not entirely sure why he chose to attack at 3 range when this Kayura has a scepter. In any case, the funny thing is, Omega survived this Kayura somehow. Yeah. Oh, I'm aware anti-crit saved me, but at the same time, you don't expect Kayura to fail to one-shot Omega. Right? As long as last Rites is broken, it's very rare to see Omega survive anything. Oh. The lack of Hobo is what bit him here. That was the issue. There is no faction buff on Kayura. So Kayura is missing 20% attack in int on both the soldiers and herself. That's why I survived. The combination of no crit hits and the lack of a faction buff. So if it was Hobo here, I would have been dead. Or Omega would have died. But because he chose Helena, Kayura didn't have enough stats to actually kill this Omega. So the pick ban issue came into play there. Well, Master of Ice. Now, Werner still can't attack because of his very stupid positioning that I've continuously misplaced. So I finally smartened up a little and finally placed Werner in a position where he's moving through reasonable tiles and can move lots of distance. Right? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever. Took a while for me to figure that one out, which is embarrassing. So he's maneuvering back to safety. Werner just jumps in, as I said. Ignore guard strike. Instantly one-shots Kayura. Should have done that several turns ago, really. But as soon as I finally got the ignore guard strike, Kayura instantly died, and the game is over. So, the key with using Werner is proper positioning. Yeah, Werner is really meant, like, Werner properly positioned can always take out Kayura, right? But you have to place him in the right spots so that he can move 10 tiles. If you don't, he is garbage. Yeah. And my Werner isn't even 6 stars, it's a 5-star one. So, there is that. Now, there are times where I mess up with Werner as well, though. So let me just show the battle where this was just me messing up big time. I didn't even realize, but this is a battle where I'm facing off against Guilard Ingram, who runs a very, very interesting box, right? A lot of tanks, like a lot of tanky characters, Elusia's here. Altemuller's here, right? SP Elwin, Mariel, so Toa for ignore guard strikes. With a strategist buff from Altemuller, right? So it's a very interesting box. Not very meta, because the tanks used are Albedo, Elusia, and Hilda. So I just began by banning Lucretia, I lose Kayura, he plays Hilda, I get rid of more assassins now, so Toa and Kayura playing my Hilda as well. Next, Cherie and Celestial Band, and he plays SP Ult as the second pick. Interesting. Right. So I'll get rid of Mariel as well as Bernhard and play my Zerda. It's really interesting as a side note because he doesn't even have Florentia in this box, right? If Florentia is here, it would make more sense. But anyways. Rozenciel Liena ban. So that leaves me with Florentia. And he plays Bozel. So I'll get rid of this Kruger and Licorice here. And I played my Florentia. Next, Omega Sigma are banned. He plays Rozenciel. And I have a whole bunch of single target strikers and Werner left, as well as Jugler. So I'll get rid of his Liena, get rid of Elucia, and I'll play Lolijess. Finally, Jugler Lucretia ban. Any plays SP Elwin. My final choices are Werner and Akaya, and I decide to go for Werner. Because I know Akaya will end up hitting Hilda, and I actually also wanted to play around with Werner. Right? Just really have not used my Werner enough. So this particular battle, the Altemuller is actually a swordsmith one. Right? So the base attack is low, 1306. But we see that there's a skill increase and very high defense. So clearly this is a swordsmith metal Altemuller for survival purposes. And he ran Bozel with Stone Colossi to basically block Werner from attacking. So lots of tanky characters on his side. On my side is the usual Zerda Assassin with Act Again, with teleports. Lots of the stuff I usually bring, or commonly bring. So the beginning gives him mobility buffs on both Bozel and Ult. Ult got +2 mobility from Breeze. Bozel got +3 mobility from Rozenciel. And so Bozel starts by charging forward, faction buffing, which buffs up the Altemuller. And I have Werner just begin with a speed stance at the back. So Zerda triggers Heart of Alhazard to start, ready to assassinate. Werner will trigger Speed Stance to remove mobility buff to Zerda. So Zerda is ready to go. Just a matter of time before she moves in. And I move Lolijess up, and it actually added a +3 mobility to my Zerda. So suddenly she had 10 mobility. So this prevented Disposal from moving in, right? Because if it moves in, he's going to get killed by Zerda right away. So the Bozel decides to shift north, just out of range of my Zerda. Like this. So I trigger Act Again on Zerda anyways, and this is probably the big mistake I've made, alright? So I was just like, Zerda, alright, I'm going to target Altemuller, right? So Act Again, strike, Swordsmith blocks everything, and Altemuller survives with 1,905 hit points. Right? And then it heals up a bunch from Rozenciel. So the assassination totally failed. Okay. Side note, what I could have done here was if I had moved Florentia forward here, let's say, up here, and launched up the AoE, I would have... Was I in range to hit Altemuller? No. So no, I actually couldn't have killed this Altemuller, regardless. So really, I should not have acted again, Zerda, right? Because that launched out a useless attack that did nothing. But because I did that, suddenly SP Elwin can come running in and strike Zerida and take her down. I was like, okay, let's go, Werner. Take down this ult. It survived with 121 hit points. So I totally failed the stat check there. Okay. If this was a 6-star Werner, ult was dead, right? But because it was a 5-star Werner, I left the Altemuller with 121 hit points, and then suddenly I have no way to kill it. So it starts getting health restoration like crazy, right? AoE damage, doesn't kill anyone though, you know? Not really. Werner does not hit very hard. If anything, Werner is more of a support character who can assassinate a few enemies. Like, for example, it could assassinate Rozenciel, it can assassinate Kayura, you know? There's like a target selection for Werner. But, yeah. The other way I could have killed Altemuller was if I hit ult with an AoE first, like let's say Florentia's AoE, you know, then attacked ult, there might be that kill. But the way I used it, the way I attacked, there was definitely no way I would get a kill. Nonetheless, this is still a 4v4 because I was able to use Florentia's 3C to kill Elwin. The problem right now is Werner doesn't have any targets that he can truly kill in this situation, right? The stone Colossi will totally block Werner from attacking Bozel. Can't hit Hilda because she's all Lancer. Ult might be killable if he's damaged. So the only target I could kill with Werner is actually Rozenciel. Okay. And there is actually an opportunity, but I screwed up big time. Okay. There is still an opportunity for me to win this, but I continue to mess up. So the opportunity is basically first I teleport Lolly just back, have her strengthen Werner so that Werner has maximum stats for attacking. Right? This double action also removes all the debuffs on my Light of Genesis. Okay. Because Bozel has already used his 2 AoEs. So I've gotten rid of all the debuffs on Light of Genesis. And he is reactivating Passion buff. I trigger Speed Stance once more on Werner. What Guillard's waiting for is actually for my guard skill to wear off. Right? Because as soon as my guard skill wears off, Altemuller can move in, teleport every character around him, and then target the characters without the tank protecting. So I restore health, and I trigger Sudden Strike on Werner. So it's looking good up to here. This is where I make the stupid mistake. Okay. So Werner does kill Rozenciel, but she's still in her crystal state. She just needed to end her turn and it would have been worn off. So what I had to do quite simply was end turn with Hilda first here. Hilda ends turn, then Werner jumps in. Right? The problem was, though, as well, was Altemuller. If I had ended turn with Hilda first, let's say, then Alt could come in and attack and kill off my characters. So I actually didn't really have a good solution at this point, unfortunately. So he was just waiting for his opportunity to take me down, right? And first, while I attacked here and took down 1 life on Rozenciel, she's still alive. And now alt can kind of do whatever, right? So alt just quickly takes out Light of Genesis. Still hasn't used the 3C or anything like that, you know? And I'm just in trouble. So he basically made full use of the proper action order and everything, and positioned his characters properly to beat me. At this point, I have no chance of coming back. You know, with Rozenciel alive, with a tank to protect it, and I have no way to kill Altemuller, game over. So yeah, basically what you can say is my assassin strategy is very, very vulnerable to builds where they have enemies that my assassins cannot kill, which is usually single target boxes. Right? The single target characters that are really hard to kill are, let's say, Bernhard, right? Altemuller with Swordsmith Metal and Last Rites. You know, SP Elwin is very difficult to kill. Some Listels properly built can be very difficult to kill. The newer heroes, the newer infantry heroes like Qtaru and Ro can have very, very high stats and be hard for assassins to take down. You know? So, or revival characters. Boxes with those kind of characters give my box issues. But the flip side is, if I face against AoE boxes, I never lose against AoE boxes. You know, it's just, they have no advantage against my assassins. A similar battle, where once again my assassins fail, is this one against Swordsmith Metal Elwin. Tomato! So Tomato actually runs Imelda, right? Kind of like how I've been experimenting with my last character. He has Imelda there for the mobility buff, I presume. Other than that, there is a SP Altemuller and SP Elwin mixed in, and Bernhard. So lots of, you know, tanky characters. So I get rid of SP Cherie. I lose my Lucretia first. Hilda pick for him. I'll get rid of Florentia and Lollygess, and I play my Jugler. So Zerda Kayura ban. He plays Lucretia. Alright. So I'll ban Kayura and Bernhard, playing Hilda. So double tank. SP Cherie and Omega I'll get banned, and he plays SP Elwin. Next, I'll get rid of his SP Alt and Jugler, and I'll play Illustrial. Okay? One of the maps that Illustrial does quite well on. So he'll get rid of my Lollygess and Werner, and he plays Ares now. So I'll get rid of Liana and Helena, leaving him Rozenciel and Imelda. For my pick, looking at this, I think I choose Florentia. Yep. On his side, I guess he's gonna pick Rozenciel. Right. But first he'll ban my Sigma and Akaya. Play Rozenciel. I got Liana and Rozenciel, and I choose Liana for double act again. So essentially, this battle 100% comes down to what Illustrial does. Right? How well or how poorly does Illustrial perform? So I also chose to have Jugler bring her faction buff, because that can buff up Illustrial. Looking at it now, I probably should have just relied on Liana gospeling Illustrial. But nope, I chose to bring the faction buff. But yeah, again, this battle will be made or broken according to what Illustrial does. Because I have 2 act against for her, so she could output a lot of damage, if used properly. So, Tomato, I let him play a full Empire box, and yeah, So right now I have Liena gospeling herself, you know, Illustrial bringing whatever, and let's see how it works out. Incremental movements to shift forward. And he moves Lucretia and the Golem forward right away. So I begin by triggering the first act again from Liena to take action. The point here was to move in a way so that Illustrial can take down that Golem and then move back to be guarded. And then I sudden strike Illustrial so that he can launch out a second attack if I want. Now I was looking at this, I'm like, I'd rather keep Illustrial alive. So instead of attacking again, I'm just going to move her back. And the whole point of that really was to reactivate Roundabout. I think that was my goal. Probably a mistake now that I look at it. But I was like, I can use Act Again this turn as well with Florentia. So it's probably worth it. Still slow playing it patiently. And this is where my first mistake happens. Big mistake there. Okay. Illustrial can only ignore guard if she's attacking from forest or grassland tiles. If I had attacked from this tile, it would have hit Rozenciel, and then I could have moved back. But because I attacked from this path tile, guard was still up, and so it hit Hilda instead. So, very careless. Reactivating faction buff, so Illustrial can attack at full strength. And the big mistake occurs here. I truly thought Illustrial can one-shot this Elwin. Okay? So that's why I went for it. Because I was like, oh, I strip 2 enemy buffs into random debuffs and get 20% additional damage for every buff converted. So this is 1.7 times damage, right? Was my thought. The problem with this attack was that Elwin is on the forest tile, getting 20% extra defense. So as a result of that, Elwin tanks the hit, survives with 2,000 hit points, and he can counterattack and kill my Illustrial. So, and that's enough to kill off Illustrial, basically ending the fight. Started strong, making Lucretia basically useless. After that, I messed up big time there. What should I have done? Just continue to be patient, frankly. If I had continued to slow play this, I would have been fine. Because, for example, if I end if I end Illustrial's turn, right? Or end Florentia's turn, then have Illustrial attack, right? Would have been a totally different fight. So one careless little mistake, and the battle's over. Or one miscalculation, I should say. But that is usually the case when you run a double tank strategy like this. If you run double tank and double act again, you only have 1 damage dealer. And if your damage dealer dies, game's over. But yeah, this battle was truly mine to lose. As long as I played it right, he lost. But if you play it wrong, you lose. Super finicky strategy. Made a mistake, and it's over. I think I'll cover the remaining battles another time, because it's around 12 o'clock, which is basically time for more Apex for people to play, right? So, went over quite a few battles this week. I'll cover the remaining battles next week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you found these ones interesting so far. There's definitely like a rock, paper, scissors kind of feel to the way Apex plays out right now. In the sense that I have a very, very easy time against AoE teams. I have a tougher time against single target teams. It's not like I can't beat the single target teams, but you have to play it properly. Thanks for watching, everyone. Nitro out.